testing REST APIs with Postman. There are many tools you can use to test your APIs. For example, like Catalan Studio, SOAP UI, Postman, and if you like testing from the command line, you can use curl. Now, a question you might ask is, why do we have to do API testing? And there are really good reasons why, but two important reasons are security and reliability. For security, you want to test to make sure your APIs meet certain security protocols, like who can access, how to access it, and what can they access. Now, so those are really important limitations you need to set. And for extremely sensitive data, you may not even want to expose your APIs to anyone, including yourself. So that's really important. As for reliability, we want to check if your APIs work, right? And if they do work, are they working correctly and accordingly to what your expectations? And so as you can see, using API testing tools, we can verify if data are correctly updated on both fronts, the front end and the back end, right? So API testing is a very important process. It's part of this integration testing process, and every API that you expose should be fully tested. Now, for this course, I will be using API testing tool called Postman for testing our APIs. So let's take a look at what Postman is. Now, Postman is a free tool. It's very easy to use and very popular. It's been used by many companies worldwide. And usually come with two versions. One was for the browser, the Chrome browser, but I believe that's been deprecated. So now we're just going to install the standalone version or the native app version directly from this site here. So let's go to getpostman.com and install Postman to test our APIs. All right, so on the browser, I'm going to go to getpostman.com. And again, it's free, so you can go ahead and just download it, install it, and you can click the download button here. And just make sure you choose the version for your system. Mine is Windows, so I'm going to go ahead and choose the 64-bit. And it should be really tiny. Once that's downloaded, we can install it, and then we'll close this browser. All right, so go ahead and click install, and we should be on our way. And if you want to learn how to use all its services and programs, you can come to the website and explore here. They have a really good documentation. It's all for some examples as well. But we're just going to use a very simple testing tool process to test our APIs to make sure they work. Okay, I think I can close this link now. And okay, so here is the interface for the Postman. And so what you have to do is you just basically create a new request. You click that, or you can go to a new tab here and click this as well, and that should be fine too either way. So now you get a request, and on the left column, this panel here is going to be listing all the history of our test. So whatever you put here is going to be added here. I think it may even add a tab up here as well for every test that you run, and you can always go back to them as well. Okay, so here in the middle window here are the tests that you can use, and have it untitled because I didn't name it. You can save it as well. So for later usage, you can go and click save here. But I'm going to leave it as is for now. Now here are in the drop down, we have some of these commands, or these are the methods, right? So you can see the most popular ones are on the top: the get, post, put. We're not going to do patch and the delete. So these four are the ones that we'll be performing what's called, again, the CRUD operations. Okay, so when you do a get here, you put a URL here. You can go to the post to add data. You put here inside the body. We show this later. We'll add some information down here in the body to send over to the site. And same thing for the put, which is an update, and then delete, and so on. Okay, so let's go to the program and run our app, and we can test our API right away. So back in the Visual Studio Code, I'm going to make sure I'm in the back end. And so let's go and run the app. Control backtick to load a terminal. Go into the backend and just type node mun to run. All right, so remember that our APIs are exposed to another machine or server to run and test. Now it won't work on the website because we did not, modify it yet. And of course, HTTP web forms does not support, the put and the delete method, only the get and the post. So there's some workaround that can fix it. But for now, we're gonna test only from the Postman. So I'm gonna go back to the Postman. And then let's go and get that URL. Remember, our domain is HTTP localhost port 3000. And our API is API/providers. Okay, that is the get for all data. So if you go ahead and click, make sure it's the get method, click send. And if it works correctly, you should see that it sends all the data to us down here in the result in the body. Now you may see this, or you may have something like that, or it might be even like this, kind of ugly looking, right? So you can change it. You can click the pretty here to make it to prettify the result in JSON format. Now the result is in JSON. You can change it to text if you want, but I will leave it JSON so we can easily see this data here. So these are the data that was sent through the GET API. Okay, and if you remember in the GET, if I go back, I'm going to close this now. In the GET, if you go to API, controllers, and the main controller. So this is the post. If you scroll down to the get all, right? If you go to this URL, which we did, all it does is it sends the entire list, the providers, which is up here in line 1, coming from the provider modules. That's this guy right here. So all of this data came through. So the first one you can see is this Marilinda 414532, and that's what we saw. Now the next test we're going to perform is like the get only one. When we get one, let's go back down here, we're going to pass in a ID, an existing ID. If there's no ID in there, then it's going to provide a provider. If you cannot find it, probably empty data. And for the put, it's to update existing user or client with an ID, right? So again, the API here is the same as the get, except it's a different method here, get versus put. Okay, and then we're going to update the data. Once we update it, any changes to the body of the provider will be updated to that provider, and then we'll send that result back. For the delete ones, you can see also the same API, except it's a delete method instead. And we're going to search that API or the ID inside the providers list, return the provider, we get the index of that position in that entire list, and we cut it out, right? Splice it, remove that. And then we send the provider, which is the one that we deleted, back to the requester. For delete all is, again, it's very dangerous. You just basically remove everything from the list. Okay, so let's go back to Postman. And now, so we got that get all. Now, if I want to get only the first one here, I'm going to just basically copy this ID, copy it, and paste it to the API address up here. Will be slash, and then paste in the ID. Now, if I click send again, so now you can see it only gets that single individual provider. If I scroll down, you see there's only one. Okay, if you want to update, then yeah, so you can update using this ID, right? So if I go update, I need to change it to a put. Okay, when you update, you need to pass in data. So that means, let me copy this data here. It needs to be in this similar format here. I'm going to copy whatever I have here, and then go up here to the second tab, and the body of this put, I need to add some raw data. I'm not doing form. Okay, we're doing some raw data. And I'm going to paste it right in here. This is the same data I got down here. And I'm going to change the text to JSON. Okay, so now if I click put, basically everything's going to be the same. So let's just say and click send to make sure it works. Okay, if it does work, it's going to send the same information back, which is you see down here. If you go back to the prettify and JSON, Okay, so the put doesn't work for some reason. It has an error. If it is, it's not found. So this might be an error in our code. Well, let's go and find out why. So back in here. So for some reason the put didn't work. That means either, let's go and check our routes. The put here. Okay, yeah, we did not provide the ID here. So as you can see, this is incorrect. So it needs to say slash and then colon ID. Okay, it needs to map that ID. So I think that's the reason why. Let's go and run it again. Okay, just do one more time. Let's go ahead and click send. All right, so there you go. It came through. It came back. It's the same data. You can prettify it so you can see as well. It's the same. Nothing changes. Now let's go and change, let's just say her name to just, Mary. And change the city to, say, Austin. Okay, and just go and click send. It comes back, as already you can see down here. The result changes to Mary, and the city has changed to Austin. So that's worked perfectly as we expected. Okay, so if you want to delete this, since you have the ID here, you can just basically go to delete and provide the ID, and then we'll delete it. So let's go ahead and do that. So it's deleted. It sends back the data that was deleted. That's what it's trying to say. Now, it should not exist, right? So if I try and delete again, it should not come back. As you can see, nothing came back. How do we know that? Well, we can verify by doing a get. Doing a get, we try to get the same ID back. You should get nothing back. As you can see, nothing comes back. And if you want to look at all the get all, remove ID and just click get again. All the data came through, but you see that there's no ID for 414532. If you scroll down, there's nothing in that list. Okay, again, we're not actually manipulating the actual data, we're just basically doing it in RAM. Okay, so if you refresh the site, everything comes back again. So that's the get. The delete, and it's working correctly. If you want to add it back, so since we already have the data here, let's add it back. So the add is, again, using the same API, no data, and we're going to use the post to add. So I'm going to change the ID. Well, we leave it as is. Okay, it will use the same ID, or I don't remember if you code it differently, it's might have a unique ID automatically generated for us. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and click send. Okay, so it did add to the list. It assigns a new ID, 86690. It's a random ID we create in our code. So this ID is now lost. So if I go and copy that ID and put up here in the get, and instead of post, we go to get, we should get the same data back, right? And now if I go and do a get all, it comes back, and it should be in the very last item because we push it to the list. So the first slot is gone. Now the very bottom, as you can see, it's been added to the bottom of the list. Okay, the very last piece here. That's the same ID we added up here earlier. All right, so that's how Postman works, used to test our code. Now, back in here, there are, again, certain things that you want to do to make sure this is working correctly. And in the next video, I'm going to go and come back here and we'll make some changes to make sure our code is a little bit more secure and more efficient.